behind only the United States and China. And he says of the tech revolution, which is already here, and many people are worrying that it's going to take a lot of jobs, we can shape this change or we can allow it to shape us. He talks about the government providing, he says, record funding for research and development, but he says that they've got to give the right conditions for these tech companies to stay. Well, of course, in the case of data centres, they are incredibly energy intensive. That does not sit well with us having the highest industrial energy prices, I think, in the developed world. He says that the government's North Star is always going to be working people. And he talked about big tech companies. He says that the United Kingdom will become the first country in the world which will make it impossible for young people under 18s to view or to take or to share nude images. So, big tech companies like Apple, Google, etc. will be expected to either activate built-in features or to implement tech solutions to prevent children doing this. I think that will be extraordinarily difficult, but it is clearly a very high aim, and one that if it were to be made possible, I think parents would be delighted. But also talking about an AI assistant for building job support, like a job centre in your pocket. But we are joined now by Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates for Britain's Newsroom.
Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, and it is 9:30 on Monday the 8th of June. We are live across the United Kingdom, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, should we ditch the doom scroll? The Prime Minister looks set to ban social media for under 16s, but this morning it's all about his AI revolution.
Britain has every reason to be confident. We're on the precipice of something truly extraordinary.
And I said, look, Mr. Vice President, you're wrong about this.
And Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy tells United States Vice President J.D. Vance he was wrong to blame the murder of Henry Novak on mass migration. Also, War Secretary Peter Hegseth said this on the D-Day commemorations.
Different European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies.
And bereaved parents are demanding answers. The families of Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates want accountability as the Nottingham inquiry closes its evidence phase.
And the ceasefire has been broken in the Middle East. Israel and Iran have renewed airstrikes on one another. We'll have the latest on that.
And support for Ukraine. Britain, France and Germany unite behind Volodymyr Zelensky in the fight against Russia. Today, the President will be meeting the King.
I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease. And I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country.
Trump eyes Chagos. Washington is considering buying the Chagos Islands, therefore seizing control of the military Diego Garcia base, buying it, of course, from Mauritius.
And a toothless Navy warning. Britain's entire attack submarine fleet is stuck in dock, awaiting maintenance.
And World Cup wellness. In the latest round of nonsense nanny state advice, football fans are told to stay hydrated and get plenty of sleep during the football tournament. Who'd have thought it? I'm convinced he's trying to show he's still action man, he's still got plenty in the locker, he's not a lame duck, he's not a busted flush, and there'll be a much more considered speech about the access for under-16 to social media. And he's trying to say to his Labour MPs, back me, stick by me.
Yeah, well, and I hope it doesn't all get lost in any forthcoming leadership election, because not just the issue of social media and children, but also the issue of AI, really, really important, something that politicians have not yet got to grips with. And if he makes it this his thing, his legacy, and then it gets dropped by whoever comes in next as Prime Minister, that would be a real tragedy. So he may not be the most exciting speaker, but I do think this is a very important topic that we've got to get to grips with.
And of course, we do know somebody who's been banging the drum for a long time behind the scenes in Labour circles about AI. Tony Blair.
Very good point. Well, even the AI companies themselves, Anthropic, for example, are now warning about the dangers of AI that can improve itself and whether or not it will get beyond human control. So we've got to talk about this, but it's very, very difficult to understand and very difficult to know what to do.
As ever, we want to hear what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Sophia Wensler.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you and good morning. Your headlines at 9:31. The Prime Minister has been speaking in the last few minutes at a tech summit, announcing that technology companies must stop children from sending or receiving naked images of themselves, or the government will change the law. Israel has carried out airstrikes in western and central Iran in retaliation after Tehran fired missiles at northern Israel. This comes despite earlier calls for restraint from US President Donald Trump and Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper. Donald Trump is considering buying the Chagos Islands, potentially thwarting Sir Keir Starmer's plan to sign over the territory's sovereignty to Mauritius. The Telegraph is reporting US officials have drawn up a proposal to bypass Britain and make its own deal to take control of Diego Garcia. NHS data shows hundreds of patients have been harmed due to errors that are so serious they should never happen, including operations on the wrong body parts and surgical gloves and swabs left behind after procedures. Tsunami alerts have been issued after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake hit the Philippines, leaving at least 15 people dead. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Prime Minister is building up to a ban on harmful social media for under-16s. It will come in the next few days.
But this morning, the Prime Minister announced his plan to harness the opportunities of AI for Britain. And the Prime Minister has said that technology companies must stop children from sending or receiving naked images of themselves, or the government will change the law.
Catherine Forster is our GB News chief political correspondent. Catherine, they've had this warning about not allowing these images for ages and ages. I don't see why they're going to change now, because it's all about money for them. Surely they're going to have to change the law.
Yes, they've given the tech giants 3 months to act on this, and what they are demanding is that the tech companies make it that under-18s cannot access pornography or take or share or see nude images online. And they've basically said to the tech companies, you need to use built-in features or you need to implement tech solutions of your own. And if you don't do this in 3 months, we will legislate to force you. We'd be the only country in the world if this happens. And I think it's going to be extremely difficult, not least because the tech bros are the most powerful, rich people on earth, richer than many, many countries around the world. But also the Prime Minister, I think, trying to, look very busy. He's found some sort of rocket boosters from somewhere now that this existential crisis of somebody potentially coming to take his job very shortly. And so I think it's about looking busy, trying to get some sort of legacy measures through. And so talking about the opportunities of AI, saying we're the third largest tech economy in the world, which after the US and China, something you don't actually hear very often, but saying, look, we need to harness the opportunities of the tech revolution. He said we're on the precipice of something truly extraordinary. He says there's record funding for research and development and they need the right conditions for firms to stay. But of course, given our very, very expensive industrial energy prices, that is a big problem for all this.
Kevin, I think although, of course, it's very, very difficult to force tech companies to do anything. We've had kind of 10 years now of trying to find the way to regulate big tech. I think the Prime Minister has a really serious point here, because back in 2022, Apple did trial this software on the iPhone that did prevent people from receiving and sending nude images. It worked. It was a beta version in a very Californian style. It gave people the option of going ahead and seeing that image, having been warned that it may contain a naked image. But of course, they withdrew it because it didn't make financial sense for them. So we know the technology is there. This is absolutely possible to do on a device level. It's already been proved. But the question is, how can the companies be forced to do it? What will be the consequences if they don't? And I just don't sense that Starmer has got the political capital at the moment to force them into anything.
Well, no, not least because he may not be Prime Minister in just a few months. But we've already got through the Online Safety Act, potential very large fines. But the trouble is, these guys are so unbelievably wealthy. In a way, it doesn't matter how much you fine them. Also, the idea of putting people in jail.
Exactly, but the Online Safety Act allows for that. A very limited criminal director liability for directors that fail persistently to keep children safe. They can be criminalised. They can be put in jail, but Ofcom have chosen not to use that.
Yeah, but do they take these threats seriously?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. So we will see. But I think it is interesting. The Prime Minister used to be against a ban on social media for certainly under 16s, and it sounds like that is coming, or something very close to it. I think we will get an announcement on the specifics of that in the next week and a half. I think a flurry of activity now before that by-election.
And of course, they'll be looking at what's happening in Australia, which have, jumped the gun in terms of us in banning people under 16.
Yes, that has been enforced for, I think, about a year now, and it's had very mixed success, because we all know that, well, I'm not a digital native, but kids absolutely are, and they run rings round adults. They will find any old way to get around it. And what some of the findings from Australia is that in some ways it lets the tech giants off the hook, rather than properly policing and removing some of this harmful content. The idea that, oh, well, only grown-ups can see it, and therefore we can just let it sort of run rife. And I think it's interesting too that Molly Russell's father, and Molly Russell, of course, tragically took her own life having watched horrendous self-harm content. And Ian Russell has been battling for many, many years. I interviewed him about 8 years ago when I worked at the Sunday Times. And he doesn't think that a ban is the right way forward. But it feels like some big movement is coming, probably in the next week.
But
or
I
so.
still think if a criminal prosecution happened, it would make headlines around the world. You bang up one of these highly paid executives who really don't care about the impact on our children. That may change things very, very quickly. Loss of liberty?
Well, yeah, you say that, but nobody has gone to jail for Grenfell. Nobody has gone to jail for infected blood. Nobody's gone to jail for the post office scandal. You could go on and on. These people,
you go to jail.
The financial crisis. Look at the, what happened there.
Tweets. Unbelievable, isn't it?
Indeed.
And just going back to what you said about Ian Russell, I think it's important to point out, the BBC reported a year ago that the Molly Rose Foundation, which of course Ian Russell did set up in the wake of Molly Russell's death, is reported to have received significant donations from Meta, for example. We know the NSPCC has partnerships with Vodafone. It's very important to look under the surface of the people who oppose these bans, where they're getting funding. And I think a lot of the tech companies, of course, they've got a big PR job to do here. But I think if you look at ordinary parents on the ground, the kind of smartphone-free movement, they have been campaigning for this for a long time. But the big question is, are they going to ban all social media for children? Or are they going to pick and choose some apps that are less harmful? Let's say they don't have the same addictive algorithms. But then is that future-proof? What happens if somebody comes along and creates a new form of social media tomorrow? How will that be covered by a ban? There are many, many questions to answer here.
So many questions. One suggestion, perhaps, that YouTube won't be covered in the same way. And there are so many different opinions, but it is an absolute nightmare for parents. I speak as somebody whose youngest is now 17, but my eldest didn't have a smartphone till he was about 14, 15. And I remember another parent saying to me, I felt he was a bit out of the loop, and they went, well, he doesn't have a smartphone. So they're all communicating and he was out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas now, of course, the pressure on parents for their kids to have smartphones, I mean, certainly once they go to secondary school, but you've got these Instagram, do these teen accounts, but it's so difficult because kids are so savvy. And when my kids were very small, we had a telly in the lounge. Well, I was cooking tea, I knew what they were watching on the telly.
Yeah.
Now they're in their bedroom, they're on their phone. Short of taking their phone and checking every day what they're on, it's really hard. I mean, I've got all sorts of parental blocks and controls, but as I understand it, when you go out of the house and you're on your data, I don't know that those even apply. So the whole thing is a minefield, especially when parents are, mostly working and pretty busy.
And it's why parents need the social media to do their thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kathleen, thank you so much for your insights this morning.
Now, still ahead in the Middle East, a ceasefire between Israel and Iran appears to be over. They've been exchanging missile fire overnight.
But up next, Britain's entire attack Navy submarine fleet is stuck in dock, awaiting maintenance. Are we leaving ourselves vulnerable to Russian interference?
But first, here is the forecast of some of that wonderful European holiday sun.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking to get towards the Mediterranean this week, we've got some nice and hot weather for most places. There are a few showers around for Turkey and mainland Greece, but lovely sunshine for much of Italy. Temperatures up in the 30s as well. Again, some lovely sunshine for mainland Spain. A few showers up towards the north, but for Madeira and the Canary Islands, we do have this northerly wind bringing in some cloud. But for the rest of the week, almost wall-to-wall sunshine and temperatures up near the 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Now, GB News' motto could be, bring me your cancelled masses yearning to breathe free. And so I'm delighted to give him a platform on this programme. Delighted to say that Mario joins me now. Mario, I'm sorry you find yourself in this position. Shall we just recap for a moment why you believe that the Elgin marble should remain in the British Museum? You've argued that on this programme before, but it was a while ago.
Absolutely. There are two orders of reasons. One is that the Greek claim is basically bogus because it's made on the assumption that they were stolen, which is completely false and unsupported by the extant historical documentation, which is quite clear. We have the grant of permission, even in translation. We have plenty of witnesses at the time who were in Athens who saw this permission in the original and who say Lord Elgin was empowered to do whatever he did because of this permission. So this is one way. The other reason is that now they are an integral part of British culture and an integral part, a fundamental asset of the British Museum. So even if you have full sympathy for the Greek aspiration to recompose an ancient monument that has been broken, first of all, this is not possible anymore because 1/3 of the decoration is gone and they are not putting whatever is remaining back on the temple. And second of all, you cannot break another cultural asset, another cultural collection that has had such a profound impact in our cultural history, in Western civilization cultural history, and just because of a nationalistic view.
I understand.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain,
with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 9:45.
Britain's entire fleet of hunter-killer submarines has been left stranded in port in yet another blow to our national, or should we say, lack of national security.
Well, all 5 of the Royal Navy's Astute-class submarines are currently out of action, awaiting maintenance or repairs.
Joining us now is former Royal Naval officer and defence expert James Gater. James, good morning. How does it get to this point that all 5 of them are out of service?
Well, yes, this is a parlous state of affairs. Unfortunately, there are 3 reasons primarily for it coming to pass. The first is a persistent lack of expertise and manpower, particularly amongst the submarine force. The second is a lack of appropriate maintenance capability and the length of time it's taking for additions to that to come on stream. And the third is the inherent complexity of our submarine force.
So what are the implications of these submarines being in dock? I understand that the Astute class are there to protect and escort the Vanguard class of submarines, which of course contain our nuclear defence. What does it mean in terms of our vulnerability to adversaries, the fact that these submarines are currently in dock?
Well, Miriam, it's a very serious state of affairs, although I must point out not the first time this has happened. This is an inevitable consequence of years and years of lack of investment in our armed forces, and particularly in our naval forces. And as an island nation, we depend on these capabilities. So to answer these questions directly, these, what are known as hunter-killer submarines, offer the UK a number of different capabilities. Yes, they, what is called, sweep the area for the Vanguard class, which, as you quite rightly say, are our sole carriers of our nuclear deterrent. So they ensure that the passage of the Vanguard class submarine on duty from Faslane into their patrol area is clear of any adversary submarine. So that's one task. But they have many other capabilities. The insertion of special forces, the use of intelligence gathering, and of course their ability to prosecute surface and sea targets using their Tomahawk land attack missiles and their Spearfish torpedoes, respectively.
And James, we know, don't we, that earlier this year our military exposed covert Russian submarine operations in British waters, and you wonder, wouldn't it be more reassuring for people watching and listening and for the nation if our submarines could actually get out of dry dock and I'm not saying necessarily engage, but monitor what's going on underneath under the waves?
Well, you're absolutely right, Andrew, and I urge your listeners and your viewers to consider this as a priority when casting their votes. Look, the simple truth is that we have a number of assets that are able to monitor adversary movements, including those that you mentioned just a moment ago. They include maritime patrol aircraft, frigates with a towed array, and a number of fixed assets on the seabed, as well as wider intelligence assets. But really, none of those is as good as the Astute class, which, after all, is genuinely one of the best of its type in the world. So yes, I would like to see a greater number of these assets at sea. I'd like to see a greater number of maintenance facilities to allow them to be maintained, and indeed so would the first Sea Lord, which is why on the 15th of January he introduced a new submarine maintenance plan. But the simple truth is, not enough money, not enough thinking about this in advance.
Sorry, we've been waiting since last autumn for the Defence Investment Review, Defence Investment Plan, call it what you will. Delay, which is a terrible sign. And last I read about this, that the entire review is, in quotes, chaos, James.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Andrew. The lack of the DIP, so the Defence Investment Plan, for those not in the know, is essentially the budget for the Strategic Defence Review, which is rapidly approaching a year old, and I don't think anyone could disagree that a lot has happened in the last 12 months, militarily speaking. So you're right, it's in disarray because a review that doesn't take into account the fact that we have two hot wars operating in Europe, we have a parlous state of our actual armed forces with regard to actual threats. We have our Prime Minister suggesting that all shadow vessels transiting through the Channel, should be in fear of being checked. But of course, hundreds of them pass because we don't have the assets to actually check them. These are all things that have occurred in the last 12 months. So yes, the lack of DIP, the lack of decision making from this administration is woeful. But it's important to point out that the situation we are in with regard to our submarine force, as well as all aspects of our Royal Navy and many aspects of our armed forces, is because of successive governments not investing properly in defence.
James, if we just take a historical perspective for a moment, certainly throughout Britain's history, our Navy has been the envy of the world. It's enabled us to become enormously rich and powerful, and certainly until the post-war period, it was the most important of our armed forces. And we've been commemorating D-Day over the weekend. Yes. I think I read that the Royal Navy used 3,600 landing craft on D-Day alone. Now we barely have kind of 70 or 80 commissioned ships, I think. Do you think it's inevitable in the current geopolitical situation that our Navy just continues to decline? Or could the Royal Navy be great again? Would it be helpful if the Royal Navy was great again?
Well, I mean, it's great to hear such tub-thumping commentary, Miriam. The simple point here is you're absolutely right. Britain's empire, her greatness, was entirely due to victories brought about by having a capable, innovative and powerful Royal Navy. And not just that. Major changes to geopolitical circumstances in the world, for example, the banning of slavery, were brought about by the Royal Navy. And of course, you quite rightly point out that our participation in and prosecution of many campaigns during the Second World War was again brought about using the Royal Navy. And yes, the answer to your question is it could be great again. There exists the rump of capability. I know, and my colleagues know, many fine men and women of the Royal Navy who wish to be a part of the sort of Navy that I joined, the sort of Navy that my forefathers joined, which was, as you say, a great one. But to get back there will require a strategy. It will require the implementation of that strategy, and that will require money to be diverted from other areas of public expenditure into our armed forces.
I could suggest an area, James. They could divert it from welfare spending, but they won't. We know that because they could have done that last year.
Indeed. Well, James Gator, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think it's quite good if Britain could rule the waves again.
Yeah, you're right. But, I mean, we had a magnificent Navy, and now it's an embarrassment. And I thought it was extraordinary that you had the Prime Minister with the German Chancellor and the French President yesterday in Downing Street with the Ukraine President. Germany is now soared ahead of Britain in terms of maximum defence spending in Europe. They're leaving us trailing.
We didn't really have much of an army until the Napoleonic Wars. No. Go back to Navy first, maybe.
Absolutely.
Well, we've got plenty more to come on Britain's Newsroom. The Sikh Federation says the government should hold a public inquiry into the catastrophic multi-agency failures surrounding the death of Henry Novak.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News. Stay with us.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's been a pretty wet start to summer and it does look like that is going to continue into the new week. However, there is some sunnier spells in the forecast for the next couple of days. But for this morning and for the rest of the afternoon, we do have some heavy showers across central England, which are slowly moving their way eastwards. Now, some of these are going to be heavy. We could see up to 20 millimetres falling within a couple of hours, possibly even the odd rumble of thunder. But for the rest of the UK, we do see the return of sunnier spells. There is there's a few showers across Northern Ireland, but temperatures are on the cooler side, especially for the time of year. Highs of around 15 or 16 degrees, maybe an 18 or 19 in the very far southeast. But through this evening, some of these showers may linger through the evening across East Anglia and Kent, but elsewhere we will get some nice evening sunshine for much of England and northern Wales. We do have some showers which can be heavy across Northern Ireland as well, and they are moving in towards western Scotland. Further towards the east, we will see some evening sunshine here too. 1 or 2 showers dotted around, but they are moving their way off towards the North Sea as well. Now, as we go through the overnight period, you'll see the swirl of cloud and rain up towards the northwest, which is bringing these showers towards the western half of the UK. Some of these could potentially be heavy, but clearer skies out towards the southeast. Here we could see temperatures dipping into those mid-single figures, so it will feel rather chilly to start Tuesday. But as the sun comes up, it will be a nice start. But as we go through the day, showers will develop for pretty much everywhere as we head through the morning and into the afternoon. Some of these are likely to be heavy, chiefly across the northern half of the UK, and we could potentially see some thundery outbreaks as well. It's still on the cool side, temperatures around the mid-teens, so it's a couple of degrees lower than the June average.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A9 at Kildare is closed due to an incident. Drivers on the A48M face congestion between junctions 29 Castleton and 29A St Mellons. On the M25 anti-clockwise, 2 lanes are closed due to a breakdown between junctions 28 and 27. A serious crash on the M25 clockwise at junction 1B has shut 3 lanes, causing hour-long delays. In Devon, the A38 westbound is partly blocked between the A380 and A382, resulting in 10-minute delays. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway is disrupted between St Albans City and Bedford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Monday, the 8th of June. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's...
To ban social media for under 16s, but this morning he's talking about an AI revolution.
Britain has every reason to be confident. We're on the precipice of something truly extraordinary.
Elsewhere, bereaved relatives demand answers. The families of Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates want accountability as the Nottingham inquiry closes its evidence phase.
The ceasefire seems to be broken in the Middle East. Israel and Iran have been trading blows on one another. We'll have the latest.
Well, throughout the morning, again, more ballistic missiles fired from Iran, and as we speak, Israel is bombing targets across Iran.
And I said, look, Mr. Vice President, you're wrong about this.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy tells US Vice President J.D. Vance that he was wrong to blame the murder of Henry Novak on mass migration. Also, the US War Secretary Pete Hegseth said this on D-Day.
Different European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies.
And a united front for Ukraine. Britain, France and Germany get behind Vladimir Zelensky in the fight against Russia. Today, the UK President is meeting the King.
I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease. And I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country.
And could the Chagos Islands be Trump's next acquisition? Well, Washington considers buying the islands, seizing control of the military Diego Garcia base.
And in the latest round of nanny state nonsense, World Cup football fans in Scotland are told to stay hydrated and get enough sleep during the football tournament. And that advice is from a university.
Not only is that ridiculous advice from a university, it's advice to students studying in the UK. So we're not talking about people who've gone to the World Cup, who
Mexico,
are sitting there in
hot.
32-degree humid heat. We're talking about people in their bedrooms in Scotland watching on their iPhones. Utterly ridiculous.
Universities are a great place of learning and debate and enlightenment. What are they doing publishing nonsense like that? How much money did they pay for that academic research?
Exactly, and the problem with all these institutions, they've now got enormous HR departments and they sit there, or welfare departments, not knowing what to do with their time other than to issue ridiculous decrees, honestly. Are you going to be watching the World Cup, Andrew?
No.
What about if England get quite far?
Or Scotland. If England or Scotland gets the semis, I'll watch that.
Yes, then you take an interest.
Yeah, but I'm not interested.
That's just the same in all countries with a
sure
semi-decent football team.
And we are going to be talking about the politics of the World Cup, because how extraordinary is it that Iran is in the World Cup? So is the United States, so is Saudi Arabia. Iran and the United States could technically be drawn against each other. Oh, wow. How did that happen? We're going to be talking about all of that.
It'll be very, very interesting, the politics of that. Would they actually be able to play it in front of a crowd? Would it have to be behind closed doors?
And where would Donald Trump go? Would he turn up for the match? Do you think he'd be a bit of a target?
I think he might see it as a bit of a target. Yes. Well, we'd love to hear what you think. Send your views or post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, here's the headlines with Sophia Wednesday.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you and good morning. Your headlines at 3 minutes past 10. The Prime Minister has been speaking in the last hour at a tech summit, announcing that technology companies must stop children from sending or receiving naked images of themselves, or the government will change the law.
Britain has every reason to be confident. We're on the precipice of something truly extraordinary.
Under new plans, big tech companies like Apple and Google must activate built-in features or implement technical solutions on smartphones and tablets to detect and block nude images for children. It comes amid reports the Prime Minister is preparing to announce a ban on social media for under 16s within days to protect them from harmful content. According to the Times newspaper, Sir Keir Starmer is looking to outlaw high-risk platforms while allowing children to use safer forms of social media. Israeli defence forces have said a second wave of Iranian missiles has been fired towards Israel and has urged people to seek shelter as sirens sounded. This comes after Israel conducted strikes against military targets in western and central Iran in retaliation for the first Iranian attack on Israel since April. This comes despite earlier calls for restraint from US President Donald Trump and Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has warned that the waves of missiles fired at northern Israel are the beginning of a full week of continuous strikes. Tsunami alerts have been issued after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck the Philippines, leaving at least 15 people dead. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said waves of up to 3 meters were possible in the Philippines, while Malaysia might get swells of up to a meter. The earthquake hit at a 7:37 a.m. local time and a depth of 20 miles and is the strongest to hit the country so far this year. Buildings and infrastructure have been damaged and it's understood 129 people have been injured, thwarting Sir Keir Starmer's plan to sign over the territory's sovereignty to Mauritius. The Telegraph is reporting US officials have drawn up a proposal to bypass Britain and make its own deal to take control of Diego Garcia, the strategically important UK-US military base. It is among several options drafted by Donald Trump's administration in a paper aimed at providing alternatives to the Prime Minister's plan, which would hand control over the islands to an ally of China and Iran. A Sikh group has called for a public inquiry into Henry Novak's murder after there were catastrophic multi-agency failures. The Sikh Federation's chief executive of political engagement said misinformation about the knife used by Vikram Digwar to fatally stab 18-year-old Henry in December of last year has been highly damaging to Sikhs. Meanwhile, 6 more people have been charged with offences, including violent disorder, after protests in Southampton following the murder of Henry. It brings the total of people charged after disorder in the city to 20. Hundreds of NHS patients have been harmed due to so-called never events, which are patient safety incidents that are so serious they should never have happened and are preventable. New NHS data shows there were 403 never events last year, including operations on wrong body parts and surgical gloves and swabs left behind after procedures. There were 166 incidents related to wrong site surgery, including 17 people who had a procedure intended for another patient, and 40 were treatments were to the wrong side or wrong part of the body. In one case, a patient had an organ or body part removed when the plan had been to conserve it. Donald Trump abruptly ended an interview after he was challenged about his claims of election fraud in the California primaries. It's after late-tallied Democratic-leaning mail ballots have continued to reduce the vote totals for the president's preferred candidates for governor and Los Angeles mayor. The US president clashed with Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press, saying the journalist must be crooked as she pressed him on questions about election fraud.
Your one-sided crooked network. So let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Former Manchester United footballer Christian Eriksen is conscious and doing well after he appeared to collapse during Denmark's friendly against Ukraine. The match was abandoned after the midfielder experienced discomfort in his chest in the 65th minute. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for the finance.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3323 US and 1.1576 euros. The price of gold is £3,219 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,324 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
I think text and emails coming in.
Absolutely. Lots of comments.
How would I know? Because I never look at them.
So I could say anything, Andrew. You had no idea if I'm telling you the truth. Talking about technology, Prime Minister's intervention this morning on AI and social media. Thomas says, that's the only thing I agree with Keir Starmer on, is keeping our children safe online, but it is too little too late. One friend says, Sir Keir Starmer is giving tech companies a giggle this morning. Yeah, sadly, I do think they think they're above the law.
Well, they've not taken any action. Doesn't matter how many more Mollys there are, Molly Russells, we know of how many people have been exposed. It's just, anyway, they get away with it because they're masters of the universe. Now,
well, keep your views coming in.
Yeah, the families of Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates, who were all killed in 2023 by Valdo Kalakani, are holding a press conference later this morning.
Well, this follows the conclusion of the evidence section of the Nottingham inquiry last week.
GBNews presenter Martin Daubney is there for us. Martin, good morning.
Morning to you.
Martin, what are we expecting to hear from the family?
Well, the families are about to appear at this press conference here in central London. The families of Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates, who were murdered by a psychopath on the loose, schizophrenic Valdo Kalakane 3 years ago. Very much a feeling that the inquiry has been a cover-up. The entire system folded in on itself to protect itself. The police forces across Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire, the mental health services across the county of Nottinghamshire, my home city, the University of Nottingham, at every single juncture, silence, failure, institutional failure. And they believe, the families believe, that all of this folded in to prevent justice. Valdo Kalakane faced a manslaughter trial, a fait accompli, the families said. They believed then and they believe today he should have faced a murder trial. No doubt they may ask for that to be looked at again today. But a feeling that the entire system, equality and inclusivity, how many times were there missed opportunities in the system, a mental health system too afraid to call out the fact Valdo Kalakane, a black man, was schizophrenic in case there were too many statistics of black men being overrepresented. A complete and utter travesty. And today the families marks the end of the inquiry, but the beginning of accountability. They want answers. They will not let this go, and I've got to know the families very well over the past few years. Nottingham's my home city. On the second anniversary of the killing, I went and did the walk of where the bodies fell, and it was one of the most moving and humbling experiences of my life. They're going to be here in about 25 minutes' time. We hope to sit down with them afterwards and talk to them for GB News, but they've messed with the wrong people. They will never stop until they get justice for Barnaby, for Ian and for Grace.
Martin, thank you so much for that. We will be coming back to you, of course, later on after the press conference.
Well, Israeli Defence Forces have said a second wave of Iranian missiles has been fired towards Israel.
Well, this comes after Israel conducted strikes against military targets in western and central Iran, hours after Iran first fired a salvo of missiles at Israeli targets in retaliation for an attack on Beirut's southern suburbs.
Well, our GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White's with us now. Mark, is it over, the ceasefire? Is that it?
The ceasefire as such, the truce is not over. The US administration very much want to continue along the lines of trying to come to an agreement with Iran, and they've made that known publicly. They've said that they believe that they can still get the peace process back on track, and we know that President Trump has spoken to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and has urged him to be, restrained in his response. We've not seen a particularly restrained response, as you would imagine. The Israelis have been struck by repeated waves of ballistic missiles launched into Israeli airspace overnight, and that's continued this morning with more waves of ballistic missiles. In fact, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, who are in charge of the country at the moment, say they want a week of strikes into Israel. Now, we don't know if that will be the actual case at the end of the day, or whether that is just the kind of rhetoric, the bellicose language you often get from the IRGC. But it's certainly continued into this morning, and Israel has been retaliating. As we speak, there are strikes ongoing by the Israelis into Iran, multiple targets around the capital. What you're looking at there is actually a petrochemical plant in southwestern Iran. So not just the air defence systems we were told were attacked overnight and this morning, including ballistic missile launch sites, but they've gone after some of Iran's infrastructure related to the petrochemical processing. So, and this is in and around Tehran as well.
Hitting the economy hard.
Well, potentially, yes. They may be limited to 1 or 2 petrochemical sites, but they have, as always, the potential to expand. And that's always a great unknown when we enter a period of fighting again. I mean, it has to be said that over recent weeks we have seen activity both in the Persian Gulf, where Iran has continued to target shipping going through the Strait of Hormuz, and the Americans have been steadfast in their determination to stop Iranian oil and gas tankers using that strait to bring their supplies in and out. So that's led to a number of localised strikes in and around that area. And then up in Lebanon as well, we have seen Hezbollah, that proxy group linked to Iran, that's continued its operations targeting Israel. And in kind, of course, Israel has been going after Hezbollah. Well, it was in retaliation for that, Iran say. They had warned Israel that if you continue to target Hezbollah, in particular strikes around the Lebanese capital, Beirut, that they would launch strikes against Israel, and that's what we're seeing played out. So yes, it's got the potential to unravel, but the hope is that after a bit of tit for tat, that both sides can just start to reduce the level of retaliatory strikes, and we can get back on course for this tentative peace plan.
Now, last night, after the Iranians had launched the missiles at Israel, I think Donald Trump said something along the lines of he was telling Netanyahu not to retaliate, and that he, Donald Trump, called the shots. Netanyahu didn't listen.
Well, it's clear, I think, there's no love lost between the two men. You've got a real sort of issue at play in terms of the fact that they both want different outcomes here. There's no doubt that the US administration would like an off-ramp now. They believe that from their perspective, they have caused very significant damage to Iran's ability to be a continued significant threat to that region. You know, whether they get anything really meaningful in terms of trying to stop Iran's ambitions to get a nuclear weapon, that maybe have to be something to come back to at a later date. But I think they would like an off-ramp on that. But from Israel's point of view, exactly the opposite. They see job not done. That Iran still poses a threat. We can see that by the fact that it has the capability to continue launching ballistic missiles into regional partners in that area and into Israel as well. So they want to continue until they really see the Iranian regime overthrown. I think at some point they're obviously going to have to acquiesce to what America wants and pull back from those endeavours. But for the moment, at least, fighting continuing, the hope is that they can get it back, a lid back on it.
And the Strait of Hormuz still blockaded.
Yeah.
And while they do that, by the way, oil and gas prices continue to rise. Of
course.
Brent crude again this morning, it's up another 2.6%.
Mark White, thank you so much. Go get some sleep. You've been up since very early this morning.
You certainly have. Now it's time for our Great British Giveaway. Time ticking on your chance to win our big prize of £76,453. And don't forget the 21p. Tax-free, here's how you do it.
We're here at the Imperial Island Resort in Paphos, to celebrate the chance to enjoy your most spectacular summer to date. Someone has to win our stunning cash prize of £76,543.21, and that person really could be you. Imagine all of the fun you could have this year with that. You could treat the family, treat your friends, make it a super summer for everyone you know. Or just enjoy a bit of me time, safe in the knowledge all those day-to-day financial stresses have been taken care of. £76,543.21 in totally tax-free cash could be yours in time for summer. Just make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 26th of June.
For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next on Britain's Newsroom, the White House is considering buying the Chagos Islands. We'll look why and whether it can be achieved.
We'll go to that and more with our panel today, Matthew Torbett and Annunciata Rees-Mogg. There they are. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, Parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight. On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because the failure is... You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 24 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
We've got the former MEP Annunziata Rees-Mogg, political commentator Matthew Talbot in the studio with us. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Morning.
Where are we starting?
Should we start with Chagos? It gets stranger and stranger, Annunziata.
In a world of what things you couldn't make up. I mean, it's unbelievable. The current plan seems to be for us to pay Mauritius to take the Chagos Islands from us.
About 36 billion,
and as soon as they've done so, yep, exactly, Donald Trump will then pay Mauritius again to buy the Chagos back off Mauritius.
They've won the lottery.
They have. From a British point of view, it could not make less sense.
No.
But Matthew, what's the guarantee that Mauritius would actually sell to Trump if, once we've disposed of it, we can't force that to happen?
Who's to say they don't end up asking for the highest bidder? Did China want to get involved as an ally of Mauritius? Maybe America want it. Did they sell at cut price or at a profit? Did they put 10% on? I don't think it'll happen. Stranger things have happened, and Donald Trump is quite unpredictable. I think we were in this mess probably because of some sort of colonial history that both the Conservatives and Labour have said, yeah, we'll take this court ruling and we've got to give it up, basically. But I think the sad thing is, whether it be America, us or Mauritius, no one's asked about what the Chagosians want in all this. And that, I think, is the broader point of, you know, they have no say, essentially, of where they're from.
I mean, they've made it very clear they don't want to be part of Mauritius.
Yeah,
there is no historic connection with Mauritius. This is totally
thousands
fake.
of miles away.
Yeah, thousands. And it was administered from the same place, but not any other connection when it was part of the British Empire.
Of course, until the Iran war began, Trump and his administration seemingly supported Labour's deal to give the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. But when Starmer did not allow Trump to use Diego Garcia for the first wave of bombing against Iran, he rapidly changed his mind. He vetoed the deal, but that puts us in a limbo, doesn't it? Because with an American veto, we can't give the islands to Mauritius. But if we don't give the islands to Mauritius, we can't sell them to the Americans. Make that make sense?
Well, I think the Americans, the worry about this story is if Donald Trump is serious about wanting to buy them, he will remove the veto and the Chagos will be handed to Mauritius along with billions of British taxpayer money.
Oh, it's awful.
Why can't he just buy them off us? Then we get the money.
That's not the court ruling, that's what the government would say.
But who cares?
It was advisory.
Guidance,
it was guidance. There was no weight behind it at all.
But you can
And even
continue
if
going
that
back. We shouldn't have took it in the first place, and the Chagosians were dead against that.
Yeah.
So this is the problem.
If you speak to any of the Tories involved in those negotiations, it was, let's keep kicking it down the road.
Yeah.
This will never actually happen. And Labour got in and they went, yay, we can give something to a Chinese ally.
I think because of all this noise, it will continue to be kicked down the road, and I think it will still be in this limbo come next election, whenever that is. I don't think we'll be going anywhere fast with this sort of stuff. Maybe they'll wait for Donald Trump to be out of office, and somebody might not be as bothered.
The House of Lords hasn't given its blessing to it anyway, and the Prime Minister did say if Trump's against it doesn't happen.
Yeah, sits in limbo, and that's what I think. It'd be in political purgatory for a while.
Well,
shall we move on?
Yes. What about this extraordinary story in the Telegraph? Apparently, diversity, equality, and all that stuff in our police forces hasn't gone far enough.
I mean, I think all of us are aware that DEI has gone far too far.
Yes.
Not only in the police, but in our justice system. We had David Lammy at the weekend saying that the police should behave differently to different ethnic groups. We had the whole debate about whether there should be more black judges to be more representative of ethnic minorities within the judicial system. We saw so clearly and so very, very painfully in the case of Henry Novak, that the police are putting anti-racism above innocent boys' lives. And if that's not far enough, I think they are not only delusional, but dangerous.
And we've now got this police watchdog, Ambilola Johnson, who chaired a scrutiny board overseeing police race action plans, said the watchdog's progress in tackling racism been too slow, too inconsistent, too poor in bed, and she warned the backlash over the handling of Henry Novak risks throwing away improvements in policing. Well, we've got to throw away improvements in policing, which tells police officers to treat ethnic minority people differently to white people.
There should be no fear or favour within policing, and justice should be blind. And we have lost both of those. Yes, the pendulum was too far in one direction before, but it has swung far too far in the opposite direction, and everyone should be treated the same.
Matthew, it seems to be very difficult for anybody on the left. I'm thinking particularly of David Lammy, yesterday interviewed in the Various Politics programme. Difficult to admit that there is such a thing as two-tier policing and where those ideas might have come from. You know, we've seen these neo-Marxist ideas coming out of the United States for the past 50 years, coming from universities to start with, but now very much in the mainstream. But is the left, or sections of the left, so wedded to these ideas of anti-racism or gender ideology or whatever it may be that they actually just can't see what's going on here?
Yeah, it makes them feel better, and it's comforting to them that they're doing something, whatever else. I think there was an interesting intervention at the weekend by they call him the anti-woke police chief in Greater Manchester, Sir Stephen Watson, who's done very impressive things in taking a police force out of special measures into one of the best police forces in the country now. His view is get back to proper policing. Just get back to nicking people for things.
I call common sense policing, Matthew.
Yeah, it's frustrated me on all sides that people say there isn't two-tier policing. There always has been. There's also been two-tier sentencing. That is based on race, class, gender and actually wealth. You're more likely to be able to afford legal fees if you've got money than if you haven't. We don't have a legal aid system that I think functions properly in this country. If you're black, you tend to get harsher sentences than someone that is white, whether that's unconscious bias or not, I don't know, but they're the statistics. There's and working class people tend to get a harsher deal than people that aren't working class. So there is two-tier, there always has been, and we have to be honest about that. I think on the we haven't gone far enough. It is concerning. I think in 1997, following the Macpherson report, it was right, and Sir Stephen Watson said the same himself, that the police were found to be institutionally racist, and that was an important intervention of which you've got to do a course correction, but naturally. That comes through generational change, that comes through education. That doesn't come through forced quotas, that doesn't come through tick box services. And I think you don't have to overdo this stuff. And, you know, people say it's easy for me to sit here and say that as a white guy and I don't have to face this sort of pressure. You can go and read one book, you know, the Reni Eddo-Lodge book, which will teach you very minor things that I've found very useful in life. For instance, you know, with you know, those that have got kids where if somebody goes, oh, that man's got a dirty face or he's black or whatever, the instinct for most parents is to go, shh, don't do that.
Don't talk about it, yes.
She reiterated, but that makes it feel like there's something to be ashamed of by being black. And just welcome the fact that, yes, they're people. And it's just about being a little bit more open-minded. I think if you're forcing it down people's throats through or inviting some of these academics, who I won't give the benefit of naming, to call people prime ministers institutionally racist and whatever else, it's just dangerous, I think, and we've just got to be a little bit sensible about how far we're going.
And it's become an industry, theatre. People, huge amounts of people earning their salaries from going around delivering these poorly evidenced DEI training facilities.
And it filters through to every single part of life. I know tomorrow there's a big event going on about DEI in HR and how it's politicising the workplace and actually making it much worse. And I think we've got to go back to treating people as individuals, as who they are. It's back to Martin Luther King. It's not what you look like. It's not any of your immutable features. It is who you are, what's in your heart, and what you can do.
Yeah, one of the think tanks, I've forgotten which one it was, did a report a few months ago saying that we have the biggest issue with DEI in Europe. And we're spending more than any other country in Europe. And, of course, we had the Human Rights Act, Labour, which successive Tory governments did nothing to row back on.
No, I mean, I think a collective madness gripped the country, but actually the Western world, for the whole of the 2000s. And we're just coming out the other side. And what we've got to make sure is that the pendulum doesn't now ricochet back in the wrong direction. We've got to get to neutral and we've got to stay there.
Matthew, what do you make of J.D. Vance, the US Vice President's intervention on Friday night? He said that Henry Novak would still be alive if it wasn't for mass immigration and the policies of European elites over recent decades.
I think ill-advised. I hear the argument he shouldn't be intervening in our politics law at the moment. We live in a world where everybody intervenes in different countries' politics. We've obviously done it a lot with America historically. Even if it isn't our Prime Minister, it's absolutely people in opposition and outriders back in the day and whatever else. I think factually inaccurate. I believe the coroner said, regardless of what happened, unfortunately Henry Novak would have died, police or ambulance or whatever else, because he had 7 stab wounds. It seems to me potentially coordinated to have the State Department one night and then JD Vance the other. And I think it's a misunderstanding of the Sikh community and their long history in this country, who largely peace-abiding, you know, get on with most people, and aren't known for this sort of stuff. And I just worry there's a lot of misunderstanding around this. You know, even the discussion around the Kirpan, the fact that it wasn't used, the fact that the Kirpan can normally be an inch big if you want, and where I think the killer had his round his neck. We just have to lock up violent people quicker and not be letting them off the hook.
But the fact the Vice President's intervening is a sign that this has become an international event, the murder of Henry Novak and the police response.
Rightly so. I think it is one of the most shameful.
In the same way George Floyd became a major international
you would
event.
expect so, because the viral footage is harrowing in a similar way that George Floyd was, and people therefore feel very strongly.
Matthew, just hold it there. We will come back to you, panel, but we're going to cross now to London, where the families of those killed in Nottingham in 2023 are calling for accountability.
Failings that continue to play out before them. They were failed before the attack. They were failed in the immediate aftermath of the attacks. They were failed in the months and years that followed the attacks. They continue to be failed. They were failed by those institutions tasked with keeping us all safe and well. The common theme has been a failure in leadership, badly letting down those at the coal face, who for the most part do a remarkable job in the face of poor working conditions, funding cuts and low morale. Leaders should lead, set the right example, and not share responsibility, as too many have done here. The regulators tasked with overseeing those institutions have been no better. Weak and ineffective leadership, as well as tolerating poor practice and falling standards.
That is Dr Neil Hudgell, a lawyer who's representing the families, opening this press conference in London, which is the families of the victims of the Nottingham murder of Aldo Kalakani. So let's take a listen.
Truth, accountability and change in the face of cover-up and subterfuge. They thank you for the vital role you play in supporting them, spreading awareness and keeping the pressure on government to effect meaningful change. They will not rest until they have achieved as much as they can to protect others in the future, in the names of Ian, Grace and Barney. Over now to the families, starting with James, Darren and Lee on behalf of the Coates family. Thank you.
I'm Lee Coates, son of Ian Coates. For the Nottingham inquiry, we've heard hours and hours, hundreds of hours of unimaginable things, so it's hard to compress it all into one short statement, if I may. From 13th of June 2023, my life, the lives of our families and the lives of many of us were changed in ways that words on paper cannot fathom. I believe the Nottingham inquiry would provide some answers to why and as to what happened that day and in the lead up to that day. I wanted to understand how an animal like Aldo Kalakani could be allowed to roam the streets and be free to do what he did. I hoped it would give me some form of closure and allow me to finally begin the grieving process properly. What we have endured in this inquiry, whilst leaving us with many more questions, has shown the catastrophic failings from all services and agencies involved. It has shown a lack of candour and blatant cover-ups. I'm unbelievably grateful to our inquiry team and understand that not everyone who has lost a loved one murdered is as fortunate as us to have this process. It has, however, left an unimaginable toll, not just on my life, but on the people around me who have had to pick up the pieces. Nothing can prepare a bereaved person, especially whilst they're stressed and vulnerable, to navigate this process.
Hi, I'm James Coates, son of Ian Coates. My father was a hard-working, deeply kind school caretaker who was just a few months away from his well-earned retirement when he was brutally murdered in my home city on June 13, 2023. Over the last 2.5, almost 3 years, my family and I have been forced out of our comfort zone, thrust into a public spotlight we never wanted, all in a relentless pursuit of the truth. On the 13th of June, and for what felt like a very long time after, we believed that the institutions of Nottingham had done everything they could and continued to fight in our corner to uncover the truth and give us the answers we desperately needed. Unfortunately, we were delusional in our ignorance. I wholeheartedly believed justice would be served, and I was wrong. Dad, Barney and Grace had been absolutely let down by the people I had previously held in such high regard. What has been revealed during the evidence of the inquiry has utterly astounded and disgusted me. Over the course of the inquiry, the true harrowing scale of the failures and laziness and negligence has finally been laid bare for the public to finally see. My eyes have been opened to what the public don't see behind closed doors. The failed warrant, the police have openly apologised to us during this inquiry for failing to execute that warrant. If they'd simply done their jobs and arrested him, there is a possibility my dad could still be alive today. The NHS discharge, to find out that a person that was so unwell was simply just sent back out into the public because his doctors and the psychiatrist couldn't find him, just astounds me. To learn that that's the sort of thing that goes on in the NHS, it's unbelievable. And the fact that there was a psychiatrist that warned that it could go on to kill someone should have been the biggest red flag. The treatment of our family jury before the inquiry has lacked basic human decency in how they were treated. We didn't find out about my father from a family liaison officer, a police officer or any official body until 10 minutes before the wider public became aware. I've had to find out through social media. For 2.5 years we've watched organisations close ranks, mark their own homework, and the inquiry must be the true reckoning. My innocent father is not here to see justice, and it remains an incredible bitter pill to swallow that a monster who carried out a premeditated, brutally calculated killing spree is spending his time in hospital rather than behind bars. The people of Nottingham and the British public at large put their trust in the police, the NHS and the judicial system. These institutions fail at every single level. We will continue to fight to the bitter end to ensure that absolute accountability is taken and the Noel family has to endure the preventable torture we live with every single day. I've spoken many times about how grateful I am for the hard work and mental torment the other families have put themselves through using their expertise and experience to pick holes in the evidence, speak out in the media about the wrongdoings, as well as being there for us when we needed them the most. You are all my family members now. I would also like to thank our legal team, council and the various media outlets that have been biased the whole way through.
Hi, yeah, I'm Ian Coates' oldest son. First I'd like to say thank you to the legal team. They've all been amazing, they're fantastic. Second, to the families, these people are very special people to me now. They are my family forever. I don't know how much and what names I can say, so I've kept them out because I could be here for a very long time. But yes, we want accountability, we're here for changes, but personally, I think, and the whole family, these guys are with me, we want action. We want action against these public servants that on the 13th of June 2023, when it changed all of our lives. Massive failures. So between us, the families, we've been forced into this situation, and together we are not going to stop. We are so powerful now that we are all joined together and moulded together. We will not stop until these changes. I love these guys. The awful evidence that was shown in this inquiry, the awful demeanour of these people when they were sat in the chair giving this evidence, these professional people showed me that they're very disrespectful. And yeah, we will keep going and going till we get our justice for our loved ones. Thank you.
Hi everyone, David and Emma, Webber, Barnaby's parents. Also just wanted to make reference, because they're not here today because we couldn't get a stage big enough, but everything that we do and everything the inquiry has uncovered is also, we must never forget the people that had their lives changed forever that day. It was Wayne and Sharon and Marson, because what they've had to endure is unfathomable, and they've often been ignored and overlooked, and that's not right. So firstly, thank you for coming, and to so many of you, thank you for your support and your coverage over the past nearly 3 years. Without you, I sincerely doubt we would have gotten as far as we have. And you do need to be recognised, and thanks. And this is a deliberately short statement for me, which Neil will be pleased to hear. 3 years ago, our beautiful son Barney was murdered in Nottingham. 19 years old, walking home from a fun night with his friends, with Grace, celebrating the end of his first year at university. His life was stolen in a moment because the systems that should have protected him failed completely, and a monster was left at large in the shadows to stalk his prey. For months we've sat through the statutory public inquiry and watched the evidence unfold. It's been brutal, bruising and harrowing beyond measure, but it was so very necessary. Just look at what it has uncovered. Every single agency failed. Every single one, without exception. Mental health services failed to treat and manage. Police repeatedly failed to act. Agencies didn't talk. Individuals chose to look the other way. Warnings were ignored. People chose not to care or be curious. And the fear of stigma and bias was placed above safety and duty. And when it went wrong, too many closed ranks instead of owning their mistakes. There's cover-up over candour. This wasn't bad luck or an exception in Nottingham. It was a catastrophic collapse of responsibility. There is also the undoubted miscarriage of justice that must now be addressed. Valdo Callicane got away with murder. He took 3 innocent lives, tried to take 3 more, and the system let him plead to manslaughter. No murder conviction, no trial, no proper punishment that reflects what he did. That decision robbed Barnaby, Grace and Ian of justice, and it robbed us of the truth in a court of law. Clear evidence has come forward to prove that Callicane did have a history, that there were areas of his life and background and behaviour that should have been explored. Evidence of his insight, his planning and his culpability was overlooked by a weak prosecution and poor quality expert witnesses. A seriously mentally unwell man, yes, but one that knew entirely what he was doing. We cannot let this stand. There must be immediate recourse. The sentencing, the charging decisions, the entire handling of the case needs urgent independent re-examination. We will not accept that a triple killer evades accountability through his own manipulation and legal technicalities. We call today to meet with the government within the next month. The Prime Minister, the Attorney General, the Home Secretary, the Health Secretary and the Justice Minister. The findings of this inquiry will not be made until the spring of next year. However, that does not prevent action from being taken now. This isn't about vengeance, it's about doing the right thing, righting this grievous wrong and changing the systems that failed. The excuses stop here and accountability starts today. Thank you.
Good morning. The Prime Minister said yesterday that we are living in the most dangerous and volatile times internationally. To be prepared for this, we must have a safe and a stable country for our own people first. Saying that, I don't want to leave you in any doubt that, in my opinion, Valdo Callicane should have been convicted of cold-blooded calculated murder of 3 innocent people, one of which was my brave and beautiful daughter Grace. He inflicted life-changing injuries on 3 other people. He would have and could have killed many others. He should have been found guilty of multiple homicide, and he should have received a life sentence. A life sentence of pain has instead been imposed on us. The Crown Prosecution Service in the Midlands got their charging decisions wrong. In the inquiry, we heard that they hid a crucial report in the MG6D secret schedule. The HMCPSI failed to inform us of this hidden file. The CPS and the HMCPSI both accepted a flawed psychiatric report that did not cover the basics. It didn't cover collateral history, was not contemporaneous and delayed by 5 months, where state of mind on the day of the attacks could not be assessed, apart from within a crystal ball, what I now call crystal ball psychiatry. A psychiatrist's report had the audacity to have the legal outcome of our case in the psychiatrist's own handmade notes. The Nottinghamshire Police, the emergency response that they held was woeful. They mishandled their investigation to a degree that's alarming. They were led poorly, and they had poor professional standards. Positions of power don't come without responsibility that one can devoid. The Royal College of Psychiatrists cannot muzzle voices that have pointed out epidemiological correlations of race and mental illness. The Royal College of Psychiatrists must get its house in order. The Regional Mental Health Directorate of the Midlands has to answer why they failed to monitor and escalate obvious problems in the Midlands. Months before the attacks, there'd been homicides and high alerts that were ignored. We have yet to hear from the National Mental Health Directorate and the Mental Health Director of the time. The Nottingham and Nottinghamshire Integrated Care Board failed to commission and monitor a safe service. The ICB has many questions to answer. The senior leadership at Nottingham Health Trust failed in all ways possible. From not formulating risk assessments, not following their own protocols on discharge, not making notes at multidisciplinary meetings, not following the fundamentals of good medical practice. The Department of Health must gather harm data accurately. The National Confidential Inquiry must be extended to not only homicide cases, but to serious harm caused by mentally ill patients. This data is grossly lacking and grossly underestimated. In my view, the new Mental Health Act of 2025 does not mitigate enough for risk. Those considering the Mental Health Act of 2025 were blasé as to the benefit of community treatment orders and only really included them because of our case. I leave it to Her Honour Deborah Taylor for assessment and advice of the Mental Health Act to the government. There is vindication today for pointing out the staggering failures that led to the avoidable Nottinghamshire attacks. This must never be allowed to happen again. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now those questions from the floor.
Alison Mackenzie, RTB Central.
Just wait, Alison, just wait for Helen to come round the microphone so we can talk. If you can let us know the direction you're going to say.
Emma Webber, Alison Mackenzie, RTB Central. You mentioned people you now want to go to and make faith in underlying what you want to achieve from that and who you're going to.
Yeah, are you talking about the government? Yeah, basically it's most of the cabinet. because most of the departments of those that I mentioned have senior individuals that have failed, none of which have been held to account at all. And so we have to go. And Alison, whilst you're here, thank you for helping us secure our statutory public inquiry. It was good that you ambushed the Prime Minister at the time when he was up in Nottingham. And it is because of the noise that we've made that I believe that we're here. If not, we would be another tragedy. We would be another dusty report on shelves that is just missed out of hand. And so I think whilst we have to wait for the Chair to make her findings, the inquiry is part of this. It's not all of it. There must be immediate action against some of those senior people that Sanjoy particularly has alluded to. You know, as we are here now, nearly 3 years on, nobody at any senior level in any of those agencies has been held to account. There's been an awful lot of early retirements. There's been sideways moves. And we've sat and heard how Hospital Trust should have the absolute responsibility for the delivery of services. So why are we not seeing heads roll with non-executive chairs, with the executive staff, all of which are on huge money? If you want to earn the big money, then you have to be big enough and good enough at your job. If you can't do it, then you have to go.
Yeah, hi, so Martin Gordon, GBNews. First of all, just like to say, as I said to you before, as somebody who was born in Nottingham, I'm ashamed of what happened to you guys. I sincerely am, and you're amazing people. On to my question. First of all, do you think that the fact, do you think the entire system folded and protected itself to keep Callaghan away from murder trial? Because if it had gone to murder, he'd have been exposed, and so would the people who made these mistakes. They'd have had to get evidence that the entire thing would have imploded. And secondly, if I may, the Callaghan family themselves, do you think they were reliable witnesses? And by the way, where was the folder?
Sanjoy, do you want to start with that one? I'm happy to pick the last one up.
I'll take the difficult ones, Martin. I think, Martin, you've put your finger on something that I think we talked about during the inquiry. I think some of the evidence, you know, in terms of self-harm was brought up, but I've examined all of the medical notes, and not once was self-harm mentioned in BC's medical reports and medical notes or reports from anyone else. So I let the chair of the inquiry decide whether what she heard was the truth and the whole truth, and whether there were people who were conspicuous about their absence at the inquiry. But that is very much, I think, for Her Honour Deborah Taylor to assess for us.
Yeah, I'm going to chip in there because I believe the father should have given oral evidence. He didn't. He was given special measures not to. Sorry, Neil, but it is to us as parents to not hear from somebody who's the parent of the individual that murdered my son, who had direct calls from him the night before it happened, who was present when he arrived at their house a couple of times driving from Nottingham in a clearly unwell state, and with mental health in his family as well. I believe that there are questions that it's not to vilify, it's actually just to seek the truth. So for me that will always be a gap. Whether it's ever addressed or not, I don't know, but I'm prepared to say that because we did try really hard to ask for evidence from everyone we felt we really should be hearing from.
On your first point, Martin, yeah, 100%. I think we've all seen now what's been unearthed in this inquiry has proven that there was cover-ups from the minute the police got hold of him up to our court dates and hearings with the CPS. I think all of those families were played like a fiddle. We're still looking for answers to why exactly, but it does feel very much so that things were covered up, the words out in his favour, and you know, it's just not that hard to pick up the pieces, which is not just this in any way, shape or form.
Anybody else, questions?
Hi, I'm Amelia Harvey, Sky News. I just wanted to ask, do you feel that you had the opportunity to say everything that you wanted to say, all of you, during the inquiry? Do you feel that you've been given the time and the space to do so? And also, you're referencing wanting government members to do more. What would your message today, now that we've had the conclusion on Friday of the evidence in the inquiry, what would your message to Sir Keir Starmer be now?
There have been certain things in the inquiry that I would have liked to unpick more. I'm into the detail, but the inquiry wasn't an adversarial process. It was there to open up the facts and the failures. I would have liked an adversarial. I think that was wrong from us because we didn't get a trial. I wanted an adversarial process. His family home, sat outside in the car, overnight on 2 occasions. A mother who's a nurse who didn't call 999, who says that she didn't know. I mean, I think you're all family people here. If someone was sitting outside your house in a psychotic state, for you not to call the emergency services, it's quite alarming. I wanted to know some of the detail to some of the questions that I'd posed. And at every juncture and every report that we got from every authority, I sent a lengthy email back full of questions. I do feel that my questions haven't been answered because we weren't allowed a trial. If we were, then everything would have been answered for me. But the inquiry wasn't that forum. The inquiry there was to uncover all of the failures. So to answer your question directly, what I would say to the politicians, if we ever, possibly by any chance, have a trial, I would like the answer of all of my questions possible. Because there are outstanding matters that have not been answered directly. Because it was an adversarial process, and I couldn't get the answer to all of my questions.
Can I add one more thing there when you said what we would like the government to do? I'd like to remind everybody that 30 years ago there was an inquiry called the Christopher Toombs inquiry, where a mentally ill gentleman killed another innocent man he did not know. The Ritchie report was produced. It discussed risk assessments, it discussed assertive outreach, it made a whole load of recommendations that made complete sense. There are complete parallels with 2 public inquiries happening 30 years apart. The recommendations of the Ritchie report were put in place, they were short-lived and they fell away. When Deborah Taylor makes her recommendations, which I'm sure is...
Thank you.
Well, it's just after 11 o'clock on Monday, the 8th of June. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, of course they want answers. The families of Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates want accountability as they say every single agency failed without exception.
Elsewhere, should we ditch the doom scroll? The Prime Minister looks set to ban social media for under-16s, but this morning he was talking about the AI revolution.
Britain has every reason to be confident. We're on the precipice of something truly extraordinary.
PM gives tech companies 3 months to sort themselves out. And where are we with this ban on under-16s and social media?
And I said, look, Mr. Vice President, you're wrong about this.
And the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, tells US Vice President J.D. Vance he was plain wrong to blame the murder of Henry Novak on mass migration. Also, US War Secretary Pete Hegseth said this on the anniversary of D-Day.
Different European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies.
And is the ceasefire broken? Well, in the Middle East, Israel and Iran have renewed airstrikes on one another. We'll have the latest on that.
And have shop staff been betrayed? The boss of Iceland, Sir Malcolm Walker, says police treated a false claim of racism more seriously than violence against his retail staff.
Well, this Iceland store behind me here in Enfield is now part of a much wider and national debate about so-called two-tier policing. The supermarket's founder claims that officers respond much more quickly to allegations of racism than they do to actual violence against his shop staff. The Met Police, though, deny any bias is taking place. We'll be live here for you in Enfield later.
And World Cup wellness in the latest round of a nanny state. Football fans are told to get hydrated and keep enough sleep during the football tournament.
And Miriam, the one thing that emerged through that, admittedly it was quite often difficult, the audio from that press conference was difficult, but the clear word from the parents, they are still appalled that the killer of their children was done for manslaughter, not murder, so they do not get a full life sentence, and they blame a lot of what they call the so-called experts.
Yeah, and interesting what Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby Webber, said, that she couldn't understand why no heads have rolled, because the number of opportunities to section or detain Valdo Calacane were huge. As she pointed out, lots of people in the NHS, managers on huge salaries, failed to keep the public safe. Why are they still in their jobs?
And isn't there also a suggestion that because often there was a higher proportion of black people who were detained, that perhaps, yet again, the dreaded PC woke reared its head in the way they handled Valdo Calacane. So tell us what you think. As always, send your views and post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's your news with Sophia Wensler.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you and good morning. Your headlines at 5 minutes past 11. Sir Keir Starmer has called for a return to a ceasefire in the Middle East after Iran and Israel exchanged missile attacks and airstrikes.
I'm deeply concerned about the resumption of violence. It is really important that all parties get back to a ceasefire. There are serious negotiations going on towards a lasting peace. It's really important that we give them every chance of success, because this conflict is already having a huge impact across the world, including here in the United Kingdom. So I say to all parties, we all have a responsibility to get back to that ceasefire, and it's really important that we're very clear about that.
Tehran launched strikes on northern Israel last night in retaliation for Israeli military attacks on Beirut, and Israel fired back. The strikes are the first since a ceasefire was agreed in April and threatens to unravel the truce. This comes despite earlier calls for restraint from US President Donald Trump and Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has warned that the waves of missiles fired at northern Israel are the beginning of a full week of continuous strikes. The Prime Minister has been speaking in the last hour at a tech summit, announcing that technology companies must stop children from sending or receiving naked images of themselves, or the government will change the law.
Britain has every reason to be confident. We're on the precipice of something truly extraordinary.
Under new plans, big tech companies like Apple and Google must activate built-in features or implement technical solutions on smartphones and tablets to detect and block nude images for children. It comes amid reports the Prime Minister is preparing to announce a ban on social media for under-16s within days to protect them from harmful content. According to the Times newspaper, Sir Keir Starmer is looking to outlaw high-risk platforms while allowing children to use safer forms of social media. The families of the victims of the Nottingham attack have been responding to an inquiry in the last few minutes, calling for accountability. Relatives of Barnaby Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates have been speaking in London demanding answers. Emma Webber, the mother of Barnaby, said every single agency failed without exception. Donald Trump is considering buying the Chagos Islands, potentially thwarting Sir Keir Starmer's plan to sign over the territory's sovereignty to Mauritius. The Telegraph is reporting US officials have drawn up a proposal to bypass Britain and make its own deal to take control of Diego Garcia, the strategically important UK-US military base. It is among several options drafted by Donald Trump's administration in a paper aimed at providing alternatives to the Prime Minister's plan, which would hand control over to the islands Mauritius, an ally of China and Iran. A Sikh group has called for a public inquiry into Henry Novak's murder after there were catastrophic multi-agency failures. The Sikh Federation's chief executive of political engagement said misinformation about the knife used by Vikram Digwa to fatally stab 18-year-old Henry Novak in December last year had been highly damaging to Sikhs. Meanwhile, Sikhs in Southampton following the murder of Henry. It brings the total of people charged after disorder in the city to 20. Hundreds of NHS patients have been harmed due to so-called never events, which are patient safety incidents that are so serious they should never happen and are preventable. New NHS data shows there were 403 never events last year, including operations on the wrong body parts and surgical gloves and swabs left behind after procedures. There were 166 incidents related to wrong site surgery, including 17 people who had a procedure intended for another patient and 40 where treatment were wrong parts to the wrong side and wrong parts of the body. In one case, a patient had an organ or body part removed when the plan had been to conserve it. Tsunami alerts have been issued after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck the Philippines, leaving at least 15 people dead. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Centre said waves of up to 3 metres were possible in the Philippines, while Malaysia might get swells of up to 1 metre. The earthquake hit at 7:37 a.m. local time at a depth of 20 metres and is the strongest to hit the country so far this year. Buildings and infrastructure have been damaged, and it's understood 129 people have been injured. Donald Trump abruptly ended an interview after he was challenged about his claims of election fraud in the California primaries. It's after late-tallied Democratic-leaning mail ballots have continued to reduce the vote totals for the president's preferred candidates for governor and Los Angeles mayor. The US president clashed with Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press, saying the journalist must be crooked as she pressed him on questions about election fraud.
Your one-sided crooked network. So let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour, on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what? A country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for the finance.
Going through the ceiling, finding the floor. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you 1.3326 US dollars and 1.1575 euros. The price of gold is £3,221 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 10,351 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by...
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Prime Minister's just spoken out about the broken ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Let's have a listen.
I'm deeply concerned about the resumption of violence. It is really important that all parties get back to a ceasefire. There are serious negotiations going on towards a lasting peace. It's really important that we give them every chance of success because this conflict is already having a huge impact across the world, including here in the United Kingdom. So I say to all parties, we all have a responsibility to get back to that ceasefire, and it's really important that we're very clear about that.
Well, Christopher Hope, our political editor, is with us in studio. Christopher.
Yeah, you heard there Sir Keir Starmer urging all parties to come back to the table. We don't really have a say in this. America barely listens to us, it seems, judging the way they treat us internationally at some points recently. And, of course, Israel does its own thing and is, in fact, defying Donald Trump in parts over its issue with the ceasefire there. So, of course, what can you say? You always hope that peace settles. But in terms of the cost of living crisis at home, which is why so many people care about this, the Gulf of Hormuz is still broadly blocked. And that's why we're concerned about inflation this year, rising cost of fuel. barrel price for oil, $91.
And we saw Yvette Cooper tweeting last night, urging de-escalation on both sides. But
I bet they're listening
exactly, isn't it? Netanyahu staying up listening to
Yvette
Cooper.
eat it. On the one hand, the government's proud of not being involved in this war. So, frankly, whatever you say, Sir Keir Starmer, bears little impact on the international stage. Far more importantly is what we're hearing from the tech summit where the PM is today. This is quite dramatic here. So the government is saying if Apple and Google don't step up and ban children taking nudification apps, then they will step in to
and he's given them a 3-month deadline.
Quite a 3-month deadline, and if they can't deal with it, then it's a real problem. 91% of online child abuse is self-generated content. Children being persuaded to take pictures of themselves by adults is disgusting. It is, I think, a good idea if it doesn't act as a form of censorship.
Well, and it's possible. And 4 years ago, in 2022. Apple trialled this software on the iPhone. They made it possible to introduce the setting where if your phone detected a nude image coming through whatever app it is, whether it's WhatsApp, Snapchat, that's where it has to be at the device level. It has to be on the phone rather than in the platforms, and gave you the choice of whether or not you wanted to see that image. Now, obviously, if you're introducing this for children, you would not give them the choice, but nevertheless, they proved the concept. This is possible.
That's
the software,
amazing.
The software in the phone can detect nudity. Well, it's just we know how clever these phones are. I mean, when you switch on your iPhone, it checks your face to check your you. It can tell you if you're wearing your sunglasses. It can tell you your face is you if the light is different. So the technology absolutely exists to detect nude photos.
And Christopher, what if after 3 months, no action from the
The government, if it's the Prime Minister still in post, we don't know how that's going to play out if he's challenged for leadership, but I guess he will still be in post in 3 months. It takes some time for a campaign to take off and to be run. Nothing's off the table, the Prime Minister says. When it comes to the safety of our children, that nothing's off the table. UK devices, new and sold, must have this facility. It will only affect adults. It won't affect only children, not adults who want to share nude pictures, whoever they are. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, says the moral duty to act in this situation. It's impossible for children to take, share and view nude images. If they don't, we will legislate. This is dramatic. This is forward thinking. This is a dramatic moment for a government which has been in a crouch for 2 years in government. This is all a bit about legacy too. This is definitely, we saw this with Rishi Sunak and the smoking ban, end of his time. Extraordinarily, we look like the PM is stepping up his game just as he's facing what could be the end of his premiership.
And so legislation which would compel them in this country...
by law. We'll be the first country in the world to ban this.
And would we criminalise the people who run these organisations so that if they defy it, they face a prison sentence, or will they get fined, which means nothing to them?
It might be a fine. The typical model is 10% of turnover, but that is never that much. You have got elements of bosses being put on the hook for some form of corporate charge. That could be the case. We'll wait and see how hard.
Well, that does exist within the Online Safety Act, but at the moment for only a narrow set of offences, which is basically to do with child sexual abuse material. But I imagine that could be quite easily amended to include not installing this software on phones.
They probably will be amending the Online Safety Act rather than a new piece of legislation.
I would imagine it'd be easy to do. Now, obviously, the social media ban potentially is much more headline-worthy than Starmer's comments on AI, but actually that's incredibly important too. We've seen even Anthropic, the enormous tech company, warning about the dangers of self-regenerating AI in recent weeks. Even the tech bosses are worried about this. What is the government doing about it? Is Keir Starmer speaking into empty space here, or do you think people are going to take any notice?
Well, you go back to Rishi Sunak, it was all about guardrails, so he was very happy for the tech bosses to let the AI take its path. There's much more concern, I think, from this government about what it means for jobs, what it means for uncontrollable developing of AI. But it's hard for the UK. We're frankly we're trying to work with America on this too.
Well, lots to come on that, Chris.
It's interesting when you say about legacy, because he does seem to almost have a spring in his step at the moment, the Prime Minister.
He's almost free. Well, he's facing a choice, isn't he? If we assume there will be some challenge from somebody, if it's not Andy Burnham, it could be Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, even Yvette Cooper, Al Carnes, whoever it might be. I just wonder, Andrew, Miriam, whether if he does face that challenge, it will force him to work out what he believes in, and it may energise him as a Premier, and he will be allowed to go forward to the vote of
automatically.
party. MPs and members.
He's in the ballot.
He's in the ballot.
He's also still got power as Prime Minister, the power of patronage, leverage. He can do deals with trade unions.
But if you think about all the Graham Stringer yesterday on GBNews, and if you think back to Gordon Brown, the big problem with Gordon Brown is no one stood against him. So he came to office without having to make any argument for anything, and didn't really believe in much from 2007 to 2010. In a sense, this will be Keir Starmer having to say, well, I'm going to stand for this. What do I believe in?
We might find out what's behind the mask.
The problems are so entrenched this country's facing. Just changing the PM for a vibes merchant like Andy Burnham, why does that make it any easier? They're good at comms, but the fundamentals are the same.
Yeah, so is Starmer going to show us why he's not just a lawyer, he's a leader? That would be interesting.
It is difficult, though, in this day and age, Chris, where we are so inundated with communications through social media, online, TV, all the time. It's difficult to see how somebody could succeed as Prime Minister whilst not being a good communicator. That has been
Boris Johnson was a good communicator and hopeless at kind of disciplining himself.
So you obviously need both.
Yes. And
substance and stuff.
And Andy Burnham isn't tried. He's the same. He's a Metro mayor like Johnson was. He's got quite a pliant media up north. He's not got the same scrutiny, I think, which a Prime Minister would get. You know, he doesn't have the detail. He was asked last week about what is the plan for the markets and bond markets. What are the fiscal rules? He couldn't say what they were.
He didn't know.
I mean, he said, I'm not doing an exam with you. I think it was a Newsnight interview, but that's fascinating. You should have that at your fingertips.
Absolutely.
Because he's got to be so prepared if you want to be Prime Minister.
Because he's doing two things. He's fighting a by-election. He's trying not to talk about leadership, and then he does so on the BBC Question Time last week. So we haven't yet really got into any sense of grilling him and his record.
No, and a competitive leadership election would probably be the best thing for the country. At least we get to see what the different candidates...
More uncertainty, though, Miriam.
More uncertainty, great times for political reporters.
Now, time for the Great British Giveaway. Time is ticking on your chance to win that big prize of £76,000, £453 and 21 pence. Tax-free. Here's how you do it.
We're here at the Imperial Island Resort in Paphos to celebrate the chance to enjoy your most spectacular summer to date. Someone has to win our stunning cash prize of £76,543 and 21 pence. And that person really could be you. Imagine all of the fun you could have this year with that. You could treat the family, treat your friends, make it a super summer for everyone you know.
Or just enjoy a bit of me time, safe in the knowledge all those day-to-day financial stresses have been taken care of.
£76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash could be yours in time for summer. Just make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 26th of June.
For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, of course, that Makerfield by-election will take place on June the 18th, following the resignation of the Labour MP Josh Simons. The candidates announced are Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster-raving Labour Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK,
Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party, Jake Austin, the Liberal Democrats, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party.
Peter Mark Ward, who is the Rejoin EU Party, Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Robert Pownall, Independent,
John Alfred Dyer, Independent. Paul Richard Gould, Independent. Count Binface Party. What a choice!
There you are. Now, still ahead, we'll be checking in with GB News presenter Martin Daubney, who is at that press conference where families of the victims of the Nottingham stabbing attack say every single family failed without exception.
Well, we'll be going through that and more with Matthew Torbett and Annunziata Rees-Mogg. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 26 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Got our panel back. Former MEP Annunziata Rees-Mogg and political commentator Matthew Talbot in the studio. Just ask you first about your reaction to the pretty powerful stuff from the families of the Nottingham victim.
I think so powerful and so damning of so many parts of our country. The institutions that we rely on. Dr. Kumar called out the police, the CPS, the NHS Trust, the Midlands Board failures that could have prevented potentially 3 people's deaths and 3 people also having life-changing injuries. And they failed.
And Emma Webber talking very movingly as ever, Matthew, about miscarriage of justice, no justice, and the continuing rage that this man was convicted of manslaughter, not murder, when she said, yes, he clearly was culpably, seriously mentally ill, but she maintains he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know. You're not inside the person's head, but ultimately, for all intents and purposes, he's clearly set out on doing something, whether having the wherewithal or not, and done it. It's hard, this sort of stuff, because there are no winners. Those who have made the mistakes no doubt feel awful, and they should be held accountable. That's about life, right? You've got to take accountability. I am unsure whether people will feel better once those people are sacked, and I think at the moment people are grieving. Again, it brings back to the discussion that we had earlier in the last hour around DEI, and there is an overrepresentation of black men who are maybe misdiagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. However, there's this overthinking aspect in health and anything else of like, oh, but what will people think? Are we doing the right thing? I think you have to look at people, to put it very bluntly, and go, is he mental? If he is, then therefore he has to be sectioned and kept inside. And that isn't what happened, and therefore people have lost their lives and been injured unnecessarily because of this.
Well, sticking on the NHS, Annunziata, you found this story about A&E. A&E waits lead to more than 300 patient deaths per week. This is in The Times, covering a report by the Royal College of Emergency Medicine. Huge numbers of people waiting, even more than 24 hours in A&E.
The figures are absolutely shocking. 15,860 avoidable deaths because of A&E wait times.
And this is over, what, a 10-year period?
A year.
A year? Oh, my God. That is really terrible.
And the Royal College of Emergency Medicine has done this report and highlighted it. But, I mean, any of us who've used an A&E know that it's a lottery. If you happen to get there at a brilliant time of day, you might be seen very quickly and very efficiently, but generally that's 6 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. And if you turn up at the wrong time, you are going to be there hours and hours. And even if you're triaged, you won't get moved on anywhere else. There often aren't beds to move people onto. Our doctors and nurses, I think, are genuinely doing the best they can, but the system is failing everyone.
Matthew, nearly 500,000 people waited for more than 12 hours in A&E last year, and the number of avoidable deaths up 10 times since 2015. I
can believe it. I was in A&E at the weekend. I spent 11 hours to eventually be told you can go home now, basically, and which was sort of frustrating. They actually had a TV up in the waiting room that said the average wait was around 5.5 hours that day. The person that had been in there longest had waited nearly 16 hours. I don't know what causes that sort of delay. I feel a bit sorry for whoever's in government because there's a capacity issue, quite clearly. Before the pandemic, there was about 4 to 4.5 million people on the waiting list. Now you're looking at closer to 8. I do not know how you get that down with the current capacity that we've got, unfortunately. And I know Wes Streeting, as Health Secretary at the time, had spoken about using the private sector. I think unless you overtake all the private hospitals in the country, we're just going to keep dwindling, unfortunately, and people's lives are at risk because of this, potentially.
He's told us that, as he bowed out from the Cabinet, didn't he, that he was waiting lists were marching downwards?
I think from the government figures that have been put out, I think they're down by about 800,000. It's not a great deal. They're sort of chipping away with a small pickaxe as opposed to a sledgehammer. But again, there'll be various reasons, no doubt. I don't know whether we have quite the amount of doctors we need and nurses that we need, how reliant we are on immigration, and also
we also know that those figures aren't at all reliable, that they have been actively going out of their way to make sure they look smaller than they are by taking people off waiting lists, just saying you no longer need anything. Taking them off any kind of treatment plan. People who are dying being taken off. We can't trust the government on the NHS.
Well, thank you very much, Annunziata and Matthew. And we've got this reply from the NHS. A spokesperson said...
You like reading these, Miriam?
All right. Incidents like these are extremely rare, but when they do occur, NHS trusts are required to investigate what has happened and to take effective steps to learn from them and make improvements.
We're going to go to our 60-second news update now with Sophia Wednesday.
Good morning. Your headlines at 11:32. Sir Keir Starmer has called for a return to a ceasefire in the Middle East after Iran and Israel exchanged missile attacks and airstrikes for the first time since April. The Prime Minister has announced that tech firms must stop children sending and receiving explicit images on their devices, or the government will legislate to force them. It comes amid reports Sir Keir Starmer is preparing to announce a partial social media ban for under-16s. Donald Trump is considering buying the Chagos Islands, potentially thwarting Sir Keir Starmer's plan to sign over the territory's sovereignty to Mauritius. The Telegraph is reporting US officials have drawn up a proposal to bypass Britain and make its own deal to take control of Diego Garcia, the strategically important UK-US military base. NHS data shows hundreds of patients have been harmed due to errors that are so serious they should never have happened, including operations on the wrong body part and surgical gloves and swabs left behind after procedures. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back. Well, coming up at noon, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Chris and Emily. What's coming up on the show?
We do, yes, it's Emily and I've got Christopher Hope.
Yes, we're wondering about
what a delight.
This deal. The Americans might buy the Chagos Islands. So let's rewind here. We're going to give $30 billion to Mauritius to have it, but Americans might give us money. Is that not a good deal, maybe?
Or are they going to give Mauritius the money to buy it off Mauritius?
Oh, I don't know. But there's also...
It's
we detect the King maybe getting involved here, Andrew.
The King?
Well, the King's crown has changed from Elizabeth II to the King on the flag of the British Indian Ocean territory, and the King said to remarks we've discovered in Bermuda, didn't he, Emily? We wonder whether the King is indicating he's quite keen on going on to his
He may
territory.
not be best pleased about
Well,
what's
he
going
sees
on,
his
let's
Prime
say.
Minister at weekly audiences, and it is an opportunity for him to vent his spleen.
The Palace don't comment, but we can look at the mood music, Andrew.
Yeah,
But it's also quite interesting how much Donald Trump has flip-flopped on this issue.
Yes.
Now coming down very hard on it not being a good idea to sell off the territory.
How much would the Chagos Islands cost? Because we're giving them to Mauritius for £35 billion.
Well, they've got a lot more money than us.
Maybe we should get some estate agents to go and value it.
Yes.
Did you see our debt is rising faster than any other country in the world apart from Botswana?
Shocking, isn't
So
it?
that's an achievement for
What a
HREs.
third world economy we've got.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, actually.
And we're talking to Martin Daubney, our colleague who's at the Nottingham Inquiry.
He is. Yeah.
Shocking.
Some powerful stuff coming out of that press conference this morning.
A lot of respect for the families of those victims.
Yeah, yeah.
They're going to keep going until something...
How do they ever get justice that they deserve? We'd never
Well, we know what
back.
they want, don't we?
We know what they want, yeah.
We know what they want.
Yeah.
We'll see if it happens.
Two-tier policing issue in Iceland, of course, with the shoplifter and so forth.
That's extraordinary because Richard Walker, the founder's son, is now in the House of Lords, big Labour advisor. Appalling, isn't it?
Well,
Good
thanks
story.
both of you. That's coming up at midday, but up next on Britain's Newsroom, football fans are told to stay hydrated and get enough sleep during the football tournament.
And what happens if Iran draw USA in the knockout stage of the World Cup? We're going to reveal all about that because that's the only part about this World Cup so far that I found interesting.
Politics.
Politics is interesting.
Yeah, the politics.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A spell of rain will push eastwards throughout today. Could be quite heavy at times. Should turn a bit drier later, but it's going to be feeling rather cool wherever you are. This rain is being brought about by this cold front pushing across central areas throughout lunchtime and then into the east by the end of the afternoon. There's quite heavy bursts in here, and once the main band of rain clears, there's a risk of some quite thundery downpours across some eastern areas of England in particular. Elsewhere, though, it should be a much drier afternoon compared to this morning, with plenty of sunshine out there. Still feeling quite fresh, though, temperatures in the mid to high teens. There's a few showers pushing into the far northwest Northern Ireland as well as northwest Scotland throughout this evening as well. Those showers will continue through much of the night, but eastern areas of Scotland should remain largely dry, so it should be a pretty sunny end to the day across many eastern areas of Scotland. Cloudy as you look further west and some heavy showers across parts of Northern Ireland. But plenty of sunshine to end the day across much of northern England, Wales, the southwest of England. There's a bit more of a westerly breeze towards the southwest, but I think it's going to be a much better end to the day than it was this morning for these areas. Now, showers will push into parts of the southwest overnight tonight. Most of these will be fairly light, and further east it turns much drier after a wet evening. So clear skies for many eastern areas, a lot more cloud though in the west, and temperatures rurally will fall away to the mid-single figures, which is pretty cold for the time of year. So it's going to be quite a fresh start to the day on Tuesday. And Tuesday brings more rain, but this time more showery rain. I think it's not going to be quite as heavy, and there will be more breaks between any of those showers. There's a risk of some heavier downpours as we look a little bit further north, particularly northeastern areas of Scotland. It's where we've got the risk of the heaviest rain. But for most of us, I think it's going to be a day of sunshine and showers, and it will feel a little bit warmer.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 21 minutes to 12. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So the World Cup's will be underway very shortly, just days away. I'm so excited. They're going to try and get me to wear an England shirt next week. Good job, I haven't got one. But here's the thing that I find fascinating. Iran, which is a contestant, could draw the USA in the knockout rounds, chuck in the fact Saudi Arabia competing too. How interesting is that?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be the first time two countries at war have played each other. Of course, 1914, the Christmas truce.
Yes.
England, not an international fixture, of course. But I've also just been reading that apparently in 1969, some football matches between El Salvador and Honduras actually caused a war. And after the third match, diplomatic ties were broken off between the two countries.
Well,
so there you go.
Well, look, somebody who knows all about this is Chris Blackhurst, who's the author of The World's Biggest Cash Machine, which, of course, is Manchester United. Chris, morning. Lovely to talk to you again. Can you explain to us how come Russia is not in the World Cup? Because Putin's a gangster, but Iran, which some would say is a gangster state, is involved.
We don't seem to have sound at the moment on Chris's feed there.
So we're going to go back to him.
But it is a fascinating question, isn't it,
I think
Andrew?
it's fascinating. And then Iran could technically play the United States, who are hosting the World Cup.
I'm amazed they've been able to get visas. But I think I was reading the other day that they've been told they cannot enter America until the day of their match, and they have to leave again on the same day, even if they have a subsequent match. So it sounds like they're only going to be given a visa for the match itself.
I think we're going back to Chris Blackhurst. Chris, let's try again. Morning to you. How come Iran is in the competition but Russia isn't?
Really, because the war with Ukraine's been going on a lot longer. And the war with Ukraine has been widely condemned, whereas the more recent one, which obviously has happened very recently with Iran, it's probably too late for anybody to do anything about it. And Iran has been playing its way through the qualifying rounds and has qualified for the World Cup. It's utterly bizarre. Never been anything like it.
And what happens, Chris, if it is possible, unlikely, but it is possible they could play each other in a later stage in the contest? What happens? I mean, would fans be allowed in the ground? Well, how would they do it?
That's a very tricky question, because the Iranians, two countries, are actually technically banned from the United States. One's two countries in the competition. One's Iran and the other's Haiti. And they've both got teams in the competition. Their fans will find it virtually impossible. There will be some fans in the US, I guess, of Iran, but whether they're fans of the current regime in Iran, that's a different matter. The fact that they're living in the US would suggest they're not. It may well be played to an empty house, or it may well be played with just US fans there, but it will be totally bizarre. I must stress, though, that the chances of it happening are unlikely, but, who knows? It certainly makes for an interesting competition.
Now, of course, lots of people follow sport because they don't want their lives to be taken up with politics, and sport is a break from the normal things of life. But we can't avoid the fact that there is a lot of politics in international sport. We see every time there's any kind of international competition calls for this country to be banned and that country to be banned. Should we just admit that politics and sport are very closely linked?
I think we have to. I think it is impossible with everything going on, and it's not just now. We've had boycotts in the past, we've had walkouts, we've had all sorts of things going on. We've got the Olympic Games coming up, and they're going to be in the States as well. And this is what happens. And when the World Cup was awarded to the US, Mexico and Canada in 2017, it was impossible to predict where the world would be today. And now look, and of course, with somebody like Donald Trump, who is a very, sounds an odd thing to say, but he's a very politically savvy president. He's very PR tuned. He will milk this for all it's worth.
Yeah, of course he will.
I think we just have to accept this is going to happen. It does make, though, for it's very awkward and very tense, and there's this backstory going on. The only thing, though, I would say is what tends to happen in these situations is that the people on the pitch, the people on the running track, or whatever they're doing, they get on with the sport. They are sports people, first and foremost. They're not politicians. But it does make for incredible tension.
Yeah, and Chris, it's how unusual is it too for the World Cup to be staged in 3 different countries, which I would have thought was a big burden on fans in terms of costs, and not great for the players who've got to be buzzing around in planes.
Yeah, it's the first time we've had 3. I think that's what I'm right in saying that. We've had 2 before. It's the first time we've had 3 where, don't forget, only last week, Donald Trump posted on social media describing Canada as the 51st state. I mean, they're a co-host of the World Cup. He's also made remarks in the past about wanting to invade or sort out Mexico because of the drug cartels. There's also the immigration problem. I mean, it's madness, really. Again, though, when the World Cup was awarded, none of this could be foreseen. But I think there is a lesson here. The problem for FIFA and for FIFA, I was going to say the Olympic Games. It's part of the same thing, really, is that these competitions are now so big that finding a country that can take it all on its own, or in the case of the Olympic Games, one city, is incredibly difficult. And so FIFA, in its wisdom, decided to spread it across. It wants to spread the message of football. And it's ended up, as you rightly point out, this ludicrous situation. Lots of travel, incredible ticket prices, I mean, off the scale. And actually, and the irony of all this is pretty much indifference from the main host country. I mean, New York at the moment is crazy about the New York Knicks basketball team. It's not crazy about the World Cup.
Chris,
and yet...
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much. Yes, and we'll be following with interest. Well, I will.
Okay,
and that
enjoy
is
it.
Chris Blackhurst, author of The World's Biggest Cash Machine, which is a great study about Manchester United. Great to talk to you, Chris. Now, up next, the Iceland boss, Sir Malcolm Walker, says police treated a false claim of racism more seriously than violence against retail staff. Where have we heard that before?
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for our top European destinations.
You got it absolutely spot on, Chris Blackhurst.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking to get towards the Mediterranean this week, we've got some nice and hot weather for most places. There are a few showers around for Turkey and mainland Greece, but lovely sunshine for much of Italy. Temperatures up in the 30s as well. Again, some lovely sunshine for mainland Spain. A few showers up towards the north, but for Madeira and the Canary Islands, we do have this northerly wind bringing in some cloud. But for the rest of the week, almost wall-to-wall sunshine and temperatures up near the 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
In May 2006, Guy Goma, a 38-year-old finance graduate from the Republic of Congo, arrived at the BBC for a job interview only to be wrongly ushered on air. and a clip that's now gone, of course, very, very viral.
Yeah, we all remember it, don't we? Well, here to tell their story, let's speak to former BBC producer Elliot Gotkin and Guy Gomer himself. And we have got the right guy this morning. Guy, let's start with you, shall we? That clip is just fantastic, isn't it? It's gone viral all around the world. When did you realise they'd got the wrong guy?
You know, first of all, I want to say something. You know, this studio is different with the studio from the BBC.
Of course,
of course. It's quite different. The one from the BBC, when I reached there, I didn't know, to be honest with you, I didn't know it was a studio.
Right.
Oh!
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know. Because when they tried to put a makeup on me, I said, no, I don't need that. And they just said to me, go and sit down there. And where I was sitting, there was only 2 stools there.
Yeah.
On that stool, I sat on one of the stools and I was waiting. I was hanging like that on one of the stools, playing my game. Then, as soon as I saw the journalist came, she sat and she started talking. This is Guy Gomer. And the screen, because the screen was on the top, like that, like where the screen was there. All the screen came on and I saw my face there. I said, God, I'm lost.
Up until that moment, Guy was still expecting his job interview. Just to be clear.
Oh, so you thought you were there for a job interview?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and so was there cameras in the room when you walked in or anything that made you a little bit suspicious?
No.
Nothing, nothing.
Everything, I think maybe they had it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
On Saturday, it's Trooping the Colour, the official birthday of His Majesty the King, all the pomp and the pageantry. And we would like to invite you to join us here in the studio from 10 a.m. for a very special programme of one of the year's biggest royal events. To apply for tickets, scan the QR code on screen or visit gbnews.com/tickets. And I have to say, I'm co-presenting that show with the wonderful...
Oh, no, it's not me.
No.
I was going to say. I'm doing something else on Saturday. Sorry, apologies.
No, horrified.
Missed my cue.
Just let it roll off your tongue.
You pointed at me and I thought, oh dear, that's not in my diary. I did do it last year, though.
You did.
Very fun, very interesting, fascinating pictures. Well, moving on. The founder of British supermarket Iceland is speaking out about the current policing system.
Sir Malcolm Walker says there's a 2-tier policing system in place. Funny that, and says he's had enough of anti-white prejudice following an incident at a store of his in Enfield.
Well, Walker's claims echo Reform UK leader Nigel Farage's statement in response to Henry Novak's murder.
GB News' Sam Francis is joining us live from Iceland in Enfield. Sam, tell us more.
Morning to you both. Well, yes, this Iceland store behind me here in Enfield is really now firmly part of the national debate, you could even say argument, over claims of so-called 2-tier policing and therefore public trust in police forces across the country. The question really is, do police respond more quickly to claims of racism than they do to actual violence against shop workers and retail staff? Now, over the weekend, the founder of Iceland Supermarkets, Sir Malcolm Walker, entered this debate over a claim of an incident that took place at this very store behind me. He says, in answer to that question of whether police respond to racism more quickly and more forcefully than actual violence against his shop staff, he would say certainly yes. What took place at this incident at this store behind me is an altercation between a customer and one of the shop workers. The customer was challenged over suspicious activity and allegations that they were tampering with products in the store. Now, when challenged, that customer decided that they would phone the police. police and claimed that they had been the recipient of allegations of racism and abuse. The police responded very quickly, arriving within just minutes, according to reports from Sir Malcolm, and said that the police arrested not the customer, but in fact the shop worker themselves, handcuffed and taken away and later questioned. In response, Sir Malcolm has come out to say that this is yet another example of what he says is widespread so-called two-tier policing. The Met Police, though, in response, released a statement at the weekend. They say they reject any suggestions of bias policing, saying officers were in fact responding to a racist hate crime, aggravated harassment in the store by that shop worker against the customer. They went on to say they made inquiries and arrested a shop worker on suspicion of a public order offence. He was later, though, released without charge. But this case has really struck a chord and struck a nerve in the country because it comes just days after the tragic case of Henry Novak and his murder, which many have said, including a number of politicians, the like of Nigel Farage, that was a very stark example of two-tier policing. For retail workers, though, the question is not should racism be tackled and challenged by police. Of course it should be, but they want reassurance that the police will respond to questions of abuse or hate crimes against them and violence and harassment in store equally as quickly and forcefully as they do to claims of racist behaviour. Too often they feel that when they call the police, they're either too slow to show up or don't show up at all. Now, it is worth noting that Sir Walker's arguments are difficult to prove based on national data, but I think that is too part of this story and why it is such a challenge and question at the moment across the country.
Thank you very much, Sam, for that report from Enfield. Well, that's...
Well, there's a right of reply from the Metropolitan Police, but it's not there, so we can't read it.
That's it from Britain's Newsroom. We'll have to... Oh, here it is. We'll have to hand over, though, to Mark and Emily. I'm sure they'll do that for us. Have a great show.
Christopher and Emily. Christopher and Emily.
Indeed.
It is Christopher and Emily. Yes, we're going to be speaking to GB News presenter Martin Daubney very shortly indeed. He's been at that press conference with the families of the Nottingham attack victims. We're going to find out what they want to happen next.
And we're live from the Chagos Islands, where Misley Mandarin, the self-proclaimed First Minister, are waiting to speak to us about whether Donald Trump should buy his homeland. What do you think?
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Monday, the 8th of June. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Christopher Hope.
I have a feeling it's going to work out very well. They're talking about a very long-term, powerful lease, a very strong lease, and I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country.
Well, yes, Donald Trump eyes the Chagos. Yes, Washington considers buying the Chagos Island if Britain hands over sovereignty to Mauritius. Is this the final nail in the coffin for Starmer's surrender deal?
Every single agency failed, every single one without exception. The families of the Nottingham attack victims demand accountability, and so they should today, following the closure of the public inquiry.
Yes, and the Sikh Federation is now demanding a public inquiry into the catastrophic multi-agency failures that led to Henry Novak's death.
Children will be blocked from sending, receiving or viewing nude images on their phones under new plans unveiled by the Prime Minister today. Sir Keir Starmer warned tech companies they have 3 months to act or they'll face new laws.
And a ceasefire broken. Trump tells Israel and Iran to immediately stop shooting at each other after the first strikes on each other since April. We'll have the latest.
Ryanair and Wizz Air, the budget airlines, say they won't hold the plane for you as Brits face up to 6-hour delays at airports due to these new European Union fingerprint border checks. Is your holiday now under threat?
If the UK economy was a song, what would it be right now?
If you have done your homework, LLM, then you would know that my favourite singer is Beyonce, and I would pick Upgrade You.
Yes, that is Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, speaking to an AI chatbot, saying she would use Beyonce's Upgrade You to describe the UK's economy.
Send your views and post your comments by going to gbnews.com/your say, or you can scan the QR code on your screen.